Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've synthesized your sources, we've pulled the thread on the research, and now we're ready to guide you through the crucial insights you need. Today we are diving deep into bad decisions, but we're deliberately avoiding the bank statement.
Right, which is where the conversation usually goes.
Always. I mean, if you listen to most conversations about a poor choice, bad investment or a failed business venture, the discussion almost always lands on money.
How much did it cost?
Exactly. How much did I lose? We frame failure purely as, like, a financial ledger entry.
A number on a spreadsheet.
But based on the sources you've shared, and this was really fascinating, especially those focusing on life transitions and later life psychology, we know that for a huge number of people, especially those past the age of 55,
Right.
money isn't the core worry anymore. They might care about the loss, sure, but the real panic isn't financial. So our mission today is to go beyond the dollar amount.
We're uncovering the deeper, quieter, and frankly far more personal costs that truly lie beneath the decision that goes wrong.
I think that's the key, because if we only talk about finances, we miss the whole story.
You miss everything that matters. The critical assets at stake are often, well, they're not financial at all. Think of it as intellectual or emotional capital.
Okay, emotional capital. I like that.
We want to identify those precious, hard-won things you are implicitly protecting every time you hesitate before making a major choice. Because understanding what you're truly defending, that gives you a complete and an honest understanding of your own decision-making process.
And that hesitation, that pause, is where the internal frustration often begins, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
We all have that internal monologue when we're facing a big decision. We tell ourselves, I'm being too cautious, or maybe I should be braver.
Or you look around and see other people who just seem to move so fast, so decisively.
Yeah, and you start to think, why can't I just pull the trigger?
And the result, which is really unfortunate, is that we internalize that hesitation as a flaw. It starts to feel like resistance that we need to muscle through, or worse, some kind of personal failing.
Like a lack of nerve or just, getting slower as we age.
Exactly.
But wait, isn't resistance sometimes necessary? How do we tell the difference between that genuine protective pause and just fear? Or maybe even procrastination. I mean, sometimes we do need to just make the leap, right?
That's where this deep dive gets really interesting, because that narrative, the idea that hesitation is a flaw, it's incomplete. It completely ignores the context of experience.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the sources confirm that for experienced adults, the hesitation often isn't about avoiding the financial cost at all. It's a mechanism, a deep-seated one, trying desperately to prevent the loss of something deeper.
Something you've worked decades to accumulate.
Precisely. Your system is basically saying, wait a second, we've learned this lesson before, and last time it cost us way more than just cash.
Okay, so let's actually name those things. Let's name what we're protecting,
Right.
because those hidden costs are the real assets here. What I found most surprising in our sources was how clear they were in defining exactly what gets damaged. We've distilled them into 4 key costs.
And none of them show up on a bank statement.
Not a single one. Let's start with number 1, which is really the foundation for any future action. Confidence.
Confidence is, it's paramount. And it's the quietest casualty of a bad choice. When a decision goes sideways, it just quietly erodes your self-trust.
It's not about what other people think of you.
No, not at all. It's about whether you trust your own judgment going forward.
I think we all remember a time when we made a choice that, cost us nothing financially, maybe just a little time. But then we spent the next 6 months second-guessing ourselves on everything.
On everything, from where to eat dinner to which financial advisor to trust, that's the true cost of confidence erosion.
So it's not just about that one moment of failure.
No, it creates a negative feedback loop. If you lose, say, $10,000, that's one loss. But if that loss makes you incapable of confidently making the next 10 $1,000 decisions,
The costs just compound.
it compounds. You become functionally slower, less effective, because every future option is now filtered through the trauma of that past failure.
And for you, the listener, especially as we age, the sources really highlight why this is so critical. After 55, confidence is incredibly precious.
Because once that self-trust is shaken, it doesn't just bounce back. It doesn't restore easily.
You don't have the endless opportunities of youth anymore. To try, fail, and then just immediately try again with zero consequence, the stakes of that next decision just feel exponentially higher.
And the time it takes to restore that self-trust, Well, that takes us directly to the second hidden cost,
Years.
energy.
The cost of recovery.
And it is always underestimated.
The recovery cost is huge. We never factor in the sheer mental, emotional, and practical toll of just cleaning up a mess.
It's not just the failure, it's the whole aftermath.
Aftermath, yeah.
Think of it in three parts. First, there's the practical energy. The phone calls, the meetings, the hours spent just trying to fix the problem.
Right.
Second, there's the social energy. It takes energy to explain the choice to your family, your friends, your colleagues, to manage their disappointment or maybe even their judgment.
And third, which is maybe the most draining of all,
The emotional energy, the energy it takes to process the failure, to integrate that disappointment, and to just fight off the mental self-recrimination, the I should have known better.
and if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the reason this matters so much for the 55-plus audience is that energy is just.
Hmm.
It's no longer unlimited.
It's a finite resource.
Exactly. Earlier in life, you could power through, lose a few weekends, recover quickly. You had boundless bandwidth.
But when that energy expenditure is high later in life, that loss impacts every other part of your life in a really tangible way.
How so?
Well, if you spend a month fixing a bad investment choice, that is a month of time you didn't spend exercising. It's time you didn't spend traveling. It's time you didn't dedicate to a passion project or to your grandkids.
So the cost isn't measured in lost dollars. It's measured in lost bandwidth for the things that actually define your life satisfaction at this stage.
You are paying the price of a bad decision using your finite life energy.
That is such a fundamental distinction. The recovery isn't just a time sink. It's an opportunity cost for your well-being. And if the recovery costs that much energy, then I imagine the natural result is a kind of exhaustion,
An emotional exhaustion.
which impacts the very next step. And that brings us to the third cost, your willingness to try again.
Precisely. The willingness to try again is often just called motivation, but our sources clarify a really important distinction here.
Which is what?
Many people don't stop pursuing a goal or a project because the first attempt financially failed. They stop because they simply do not want to feel the disappointment twice.
They're avoiding the psychic tax of repeating that painful process.
That whole emotional and energetic process we just outlined, yes.
So if you hesitated to start that new side business or, invest in that new idea, you might label yourself as lacking motivation.
Right.
But the truth, if we use this reframe, is that you are just prioritizing self-preservation.
Absolutely. That reluctance is protection. It is not laziness. Your brain, having experienced the immense energy cost of recovery, is just efficiently seeking to avoid unnecessary pain.
You're not lacking motivation. You're just prioritizing emotional defense.
You are thinking, I cannot afford to spend another 3 months of my life cleaning up a mess like that one.
And that leads us to the fourth cost, which is maybe the quietest one in public, but the loudest in our internal lives. Identity and self-respect.
This is where the emotional core of the decision really lies. We are focusing entirely on the internal cost, how a bad decision makes you feel about yourself privately.
It's not the external shame of having people know you failed.
No, it's that persistent internal whisper.
The whisper of feeling foolish or feeling taken advantage of, that feeling like you should have known better.
Or that you are outsmarted or easily fooled. And these are profound costs because they strike right at the heart of our self-perception as capable, competent adults.
I see that.
Look, if you lose $5,000 in a bad investment, that's a measurable financial loss. But if the aftermath leaves you feeling like you are fundamentally bad at managing your own affairs, or that you're susceptible to scams,
The stain on your sense of identity just lingers. It stays with you much longer.
far longer. The sources highlight that these feelings often persist long after any money lost has been forgotten or replaced.
You might recover financially pretty quickly, but that loss of self-respect, that sense of feeling stupid,
Yeah.
that can linger for years. And it impacts your ability to trust new people or embrace new opportunities.
It creates a self-imposed boundary. We retreat to familiar ground, not because we love it, but because we fear stepping onto ground where we might be made to feel small again.
A protective retreat. That's the ultimate cost of self-respect damage.
It is.
So we've laid out these four non-financial assets: confidence, energy, willingness to try again, and identity. But why fundamentally does this all matter, more specifically after age 55? What changes that elevates these four costs?
It's a crucial question about life perception. I mean, earlier in life, mistakes often felt temporary.
Like a setback.
A setback, exactly. But there was always this implicit belief that you had time. decades, in fact, to pivot, learn, and restart. If you messed up your career at 30, you had plenty of time to build a new one.
But later in life,
Later in life, the feeling changes entirely. Mistakes can feel defining. They don't just set you back, they feel like they might dictate the terms of your retirement or your remaining years.
it's not that recovery is impossible.
No, not at all. People recover spectacularly at all ages. But the deep desire is to not have to completely rebuild one's stability or status or life structure from scratch again.
It's the recognition of the finite clock. The remaining time and available effort are just.
Yeah,
They're more precious.
absolutely.
You don't want to spend 5 years undoing a structural mistake when you could be spending those 5 years actually enjoying your life.
Exactly. When you, the listener, hesitate on a big decision, what you're doing is protecting your sense of self, your hard-won stability, and your dignity. This is not fear, which is often paralyzing. This is a highly sophisticated, holistic defense system activating.
Prompted by decades of experience.
Yes.
That reframes the entire value hierarchy, doesn't it? We keep saying money can be replaced. You can earn it back, adjust your investments, find a new source. But confidence, that ability to trust yourself,
That is profoundly slower to rebuild.
it changes the operating system itself.
It does. And that's why people after 55 don't bounce back in the same way they might have in their 20s. It's not because they are fragile, it's because they're simply more aware of the high stakes involved in these non-financial costs.
They understand that recovery isn't just about replenishing the checking account.
It's about replenishing the reserves of energy and self-trust. They're not being timid, they're exercising wisdom.
So let's bring this full circle to the critical reframe. If hesitation is not a flaw, and it's not simply fear, what is it? How do we stop seeing it as a personality fault we need to overcome?
This is the core takeaway, the absolute central concept of this whole deep dive. We have to internalize this truth. Hesitation is not resistance, it is information.
Information about those 4 hidden costs we just talked about.
Exactly. We need to change the function we assign to that feeling, that discomfort, that pause, that little internal brake being tapped. That is your experience speaking up.
It's your wisdom saying.
It's your wisdom saying, hey, we have not analyzed the non-financial risk adequately. Let's understand this properly before we move.
So instead of just dismissing that pause as being too cautious, we should treat it like a crucial notification, a system alert.
A system alert. I love that.
If I hesitate, I should stop and ask myself, which of the 4 assets am I worried about damaging here? Is it my confidence? Is it the sheer energy required for the cleanup if this goes wrong?
Precisely. That inner voice deserves to be listened to, respected, and interrogated, not just dismissed or silenced.
So the next question isn't, how much money am I risking?
No. It should be, what condition can I change in this decision to minimize the risk to my confidence and my energy? Because often, a small adjustment to the scope or the timeline, it completely mitigates those non-financial costs.
That's a really powerful shift in perspective. If you, the listener, have ever wondered why decisions feel harder now than they did 20 years ago, this is a huge part of the answer.
It is.
It's not that the financial decisions are necessarily bigger, though they often are. It's that your experience has made you a better protector of what truly matters.
You're protecting capital that can't be easily printed or earned back. You're protecting your sense of competence, your finite energy, and your self-respect. And those assets are absolutely worth protecting.
Treat your hesitation as a sophisticated risk assessment tool.
You got it.
That's a great note to end on. In upcoming deep dives, we'll talk about the practical side of this, like how to take safe first steps when you're feeling this specific type of hesitation.
And how to structure decisions so you can test the waters without exposing those precious non-financial assets.
But for today, we want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Your hesitation is not weakness. It is experience and wisdom prompting you to ask for better, safer, more confident conditions before moving forward. The goal isn't to eliminate risk. The goal is to protect your most valuable assets, confidence, energy, and self-respect, every step of the way.